So it's a Sunday afternoon. It is 42 degrees. Feels like the inside of a furnace. But I'm super excited because we're at the gate of the Panna Tiger Reserve. It's been over 5 years since I last saw a tiger. First time for me in Madhya Pradesh. First time for me at Panna. I've been to Tadoba a number of times. I've been to tiger reserves in the south a number of times. But the first time in Madhya Pradesh, and I'm super excited. We have 12 game drives here, and can't wait to get in when the park gates open.
मेरा नाम सोनू सेन है और स्वागत है आप लोगों का पन्ना टाइगर रिज़र्व में। और मैं आपको यहाँ के बारे में सारी जानकारी दूंगा और आपको यहाँ का जंगल एक्सप्लोर कराऊंगा। तो सबसे पहले हम गेट के अंदर एंटर हो चुके हैं, जो कि हमारा पन्ना का जो कोर एरिया है वो 576 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर है, जिसका 20% एरिया ही ओपन है। बाकी का जो एरिया है वो नॉन टूरिज़म है, जहाँ पर सफारी अलाउड नहीं है। तो 20% एरिया में हम लोग घूमेंगे और साथ ही में इसको टीक डोमिनेंट फॉरेस्ट बोलते हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ पे 70 to 80% जो है वो टीक के पेड़ पाए जाते हैं, सागौन जिसको बोलते हैं। और साथ ही में इसको डेसिडस फॉरेस्ट भी बोलते हैं, क्योंकि ये सीज़न के अकॉर्डिंग जो है वो चेंज होता रहता है। और हमारा पन्ना जो है ये 3 अलग अलग प्लेटोज़ में है, 3 डिफरेंट प्लेटोज़ हैं, जो कि यहाँ की टोपोग्राफी है वो टेबल टॉप है और स्टेप्स बाय स्टेप्स है, फर्स्ट सेकंड थर्ड। और यहाँ का जो वेटलैंड एरिया है वो बहुत सुंदर है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे पार्क के बीचों बीच से केन जो रिवर है, जिसका प्राचीन नाम कर्णावती था, तो वो निकलती है। तो ज़्यादातर गर्मी के मौसम में, समर सीज़न में जो है हमारे यहाँ पे जितनी भी वाइल्ड लाइफ है वो आपको रिवर बैंक में देखने के लिए मिलेगी। और बाकी का जो है वो हम आपको और आगे एक्सप्लोर कराते हैं।
Much on cue, the first thing we're doing here is a boat ride. Reminds me a bit of Bhadra back home, where we can see tigers and maybe other wildlife in the boat. So Panna has been really high on my list because of what a beautiful habitat it is. While it is a deciduous forest, it's also on 2 or 3 different plateaus, and that gives it a large number of deep gorges. And it has the Ken River running through it. So there's a great chance of seeing a tiger along a riverbank. We have a chance of seeing a tiger along these rock faces, all of which make for great scapes. So waiting for our slot to come up, and hopefully you'll see some wildlife there. Even before we got onto the boat, we could see a family of tigers on the other side of the river. This was a first for me, to watch a tiger while I'm on foot in a tiger reserve. Just as I was getting my camera ready, the mother walked out of the water and into the woods behind with one of the cubs. And though I saw both cubs, I could only get one of them on my camera. We watched this tigress, who goes by the name of Sita, walk away while we were still on the bank. But my friends Sumeet, Gayathri and Vihaan were on the boat and got some brilliant photos. But there was another tiger on our side of the river that everyone was photographing. Evidently, Panna, at a given time and place, offers you a buffet of tigers that you can pick from. And even before I came to terms with this luxury, our motorboat headed towards a large rock face and stopped. It is one of the most beautiful settings I've seen a tiger in. Almost dreamlike. A tiger cub on a rock, the gushing river in front, and the lush forest behind. This is the quintessential Panna setting that I hope for. And within an hour of my first drive, it was served, and how. It's hard to get videos from a boat, but I really enjoyed the stills I made here. After a while, I just put my camera down and savored the moment. Once we came back up, we heard about this cub's mom, a tigress that is known as P151, and another cub sitting out in the open. By the time we got there, we had just the time for one image of the mother, and then she went and sat in two. We saw a lot more of this family in the drives to come. A while later, we saw another tiger that evening, a tigress known as P141, who is nurturing a litter of 3 almost adult cubs in this area. It was a crowded sighting, but the tigress was bold and indifferent to the commotion caused by the many cars around her. She walked along a long line of parked cars, including ours, for over a kilometer, and then disappeared into the foliage along the riverbank. This is one of the closest tiger encounters I've ever had.
So it's 5 a.m. on a Monday morning, and we're ready for our second main drive. Even though the gates open closer to 5:45 or maybe 6, I am here very early because there's a lot of importance that I've attached over the years to being early in the queue of cars before entering the park on a morning drive. And I think it's more out of habit and convention and a little bit of respect to the ceremony that is about getting into a forest in the morning. There have been a number of times where I've been the first car and seen a tiger. There's also been a number of times where I've been the first or second car and not seen a tiger. And a part of me also enjoys watching all the commotion, the chaos, the build-up, and the anticipation for the last 30 minutes before the gates open. It's much fun to watch. So here I am, nice and early. Let's see if it necessarily results in us seeing the tiger or not. We'll obviously keep us all posted on that.
We were the third car to enter the jungle this morning. Every morning, I set up my action camera on our car to record our entry into the jungle, among other things. This time, I forgot to turn it off after entry, and I've sped it up 20x so that you can see for yourself the Tiger Park legend about being the first car to enter the park.
रोड पे एकदम राइट में लेफ्ट में
We enter the jungle at 5:45 a.m. and at 6:10, we're in front of 2 tiger cubs, one of them right in the middle of the road. I did not have a great view of the other, but had a stellar view of this one. She was so sleepy, but like most kids, was fighting sleep. I tried to make the most of the setting, and I'm very happy with the shots I've made. Sumeet was 1 car ahead of us and had a lower angle. He made this beautiful frame. After a few minutes of waiting, we heard alarm calls of a sambar in the distance. The cubs became attentive and after a while started walking away. Because we rely so much on our sight, unlike other animals who use a combination of sight, sound and smell, we were the last to find out what the rest of the jungle knew a good 10 minutes ago. A tiger was here. The family went into a thicket. A little while later, the mom appeared and walked towards the river. That was the last we saw of her on this trip. With the mom away, the cubs ventured out and put on a show. At about 15 months, it seemed like these two had overgrown the playfulness. Curiosity and exploration had taken over. They were all over this patch of forest, disappearing into one thicket and appearing from another. At one point, it was hard to keep track. And as awesome as this wasn't the last we saw of these cubs. We saw them the next day, still by themselves, at a small stream. It was a beautiful setting. The two cubs were chilling, the mother still away. We got to see an incredible natural history moment that day when a herd of sambar deer visited the waterhole. One of these cubs got into a stalking posture as soon as it saw the sambar. Eventually, instincts took over and it tried to stalk the deer. This level of hardwiring at such a young age is probably what makes them an apex predator. The deer had their fill and went away, but we heard no alarm calls, which probably means that they did not realize tigers were here, which is quite an amazing feat for 15-month-olds. As they walked back to the jungle, I hope that their language had the vocabulary to tell mom every detail of their little adventure this evening, because I think she'll be proud. We're waiting on a narrow bridge over an almost dry stream. We're hoping for a subadult tiger to show up. It has been seen here often, and given how beautiful this setting is, it is worth at least one afternoon with all our eggs in this basket. This bridge is right at the border of the tourism zone. Tourist cars can't cross the bridge. It is also at one end of Pipertola, which also has a large grassland and is currently home to a tigress that goes by P141 and 3 of her almost fully grown cubs. Though the tourism zone of Panna is only a fifth of the core area, it is huge. We stayed at the Madla Gate, which is closest to the river basin. The Hinota Gate is closest to the Hinota Plateau, and it takes us close to 3 hours to drive from the Madla Gate to the Hinota Gate. And this drive traverses the range of at least 4 tiger families and at least 3 adult males when we visited the park in May 2026. Our first point of interest as we drive from the Madla Gate is the boating point. P151 and her 2 15-month-old cubs are on one side of the Ken River in this area. Sita, a tigress from P151's earlier litter, along with 2 of her cubs, are on the other side of the river. This other side is outside the tourism zone, so we can only see Sita's family from a boat if they happen to be on the riverbed. We then head further along the river and cut into the grassland of Pipertola. This is the area we're waiting in now for one of P141's almost fully grown cubs. After Pipertola, we can head up towards the Hinota Plateau. P142 is raising 3 of her really young cubs, maybe 4 or 5 months old, in this area near the Hinota Gate. This family is high on my list, but getting to Hinota takes a long time and a lot of effort from the Madla Gate, which is where we've booked our entries from on all days. Apart from these families, there were at least 3 male tigers in the area: P661, P663, and a tiger that went by the name of Mr. India because of how elusive he is. At the moment, we were still waiting for one of the cubs of P141, the male. Our guide saw something in the distance.
पानी में सर वो बैठा पानी पी रहा देखो वो बैठा अरे यार कौन हुआ यार नाम हल्के नाम तो ग्रिल बच्चा भी.
Sonu confirmed that this was indeed the male from P141's litter. So how do these names, P141, P151 and so on, come about? Panna is a brilliant tale of recovery. In 2009, this amazing landscape did not have tigers. It took a successful reintroduction project for a thriving population today of over 70 tigers across its core and buffer zones, about 15 years after reintroduction. And the nomenclature goes back to the reintroduction program. In March 2009, the first tigress was translocated into Panna from Bandhavgarh and was called T1. The second tigress to be translocated into Panna was from Kana, and she was called T2. The third tiger, a male from Pench, was translocated into Panna in November 2009, and he was called T3. There were a few more translocations later, all of them denoted by the letter T and the chronological number. In April 2010, T1 had her first litter with T3. 2 cubs of a litter of 4 survived and were called P111 and P112. P because they were born in Panna, and 111 and 112 meaning that they were born to T1 in her first litter and were the first and second cubs respectively. Since then, T1 has had many litters. So P141, the tigress we saw a few days back, gives us the following information from her name. She was born in Panna, she was born to T1, she was in T1's 4th litter, and that she was the first cub in that litter. So P142 is her sister. P151 is also a sister, but from another litter. This nomenclature works for now, but it can become a mouthful with another generation or two. So P151's cubs are going to be called P15111, P15112, and their cubs are going to be called P1511211, P1511212, and so on. This is probably why the tigress across the river is referred to as Sita. Back to the tiger we've been waiting for. Though we called him an almost fully grown cub, when he walked out of the stream and onto the road, we realized there was nothing cub-like about him. He looked like a proper big tiger. I was so thrilled with some of the poses he struck. And after walking on the road for a bit, he disappeared into the bush.
So we're at the end of our game drive, and it was another great day. So it reminded me a bit of the tiger game drives I've been in before, where you see one tiger and you wait for it and it shows up from somewhere. It then walked onto the road for a bit. We made some good stills. So yeah, great day overall. And our drive was cut short a little bit because of rain, unexpected. But you can see the dark clouds behind me. There is a forecast of a thunderstorm for tonight. Hopefully nothing that will affect our plans for tomorrow. Looking forward to getting back and processing the shots. नहीं आ रही होगी ना, बस यहीं पे बारिश
अभी तो यहाँ हो रहा है, मुझे लग रहा है शायद यहाँ पे नहीं आवे.
It's one thing to be in a forest in the monsoon when you're mentally and rain gear wise prepared for the rain. It's another thing entirely to be in a tiger park in an open jeep in summer and watch dark clouds engulf a plateau in minutes. Our smartphones hadn't forecasted rain for the day, so with much bravado, we drove into the dark clouds. And the closer we drove, the darker they got. If they could speak, they'd probably ask us what the hell we were thinking. But short of that, they did everything to dissuade us. But as it turned out, the only place we could take shelter for miles around us happened to be in the middle of the cloud cover. So we drove into a rather remote nook of the park en route the Hinota Plateau and found an old abandoned watchtower. By the time we reached the watchtower, we were properly drenched.
So there was no forecast for rain today, but as things stand, we are in the middle of a thunderstorm, and we were lucky to find ourselves this little watchtower, a small camp, and we parked ourselves in it for the moment, hoping that the rain stops. And I'm hoping we'll have some good sightings once the rain stops, because I think that rain like this is likely to wash away any scent marking that exists. Actually, to find tigers if it rains, or such is the hope. For now, just hoping that the rain stops.
There's an understated benefit of being in a remote corner of a tiger park. As activity picks up in a particular area in the park, more cars go there. And since more cars are there, more area is monitored more frequently and more activity gets picked up. And an already popular area starts reporting more sightings, making it even more popular for how hot the sightings are. This is further amplified when there are multiple tiger families in a small area, like P141, P151, and Sita along with their litters, all being seen along the river basin. This is also why we booked all our entries from the Madla gate. Cars entering from Hinota gate would be eager to drive down to the river basin, a hot area. So they'd be looking in Hinota less, which would in turn report fewer sightings, making it colder than it is sightings wise. With that in mind, on this rainy morning, our plan was to explore the Hinota plateau, even if it meant no tigers. That we'd driven so deep into the plateau looking for shelter helped. Because as soon as it stopped raining, this happened.
So it's back to being sunny here, almost as if it never rained. And we had a thunderstorm like a couple of hours ago. And we did see a tigress. We saw 142, which I'm told is the sister of 141, whose litter we've been seeing all along. 142 and 141 are part of the same litter. So nice to have seen another tigress. And 142 also has really young cubs. So that's something I was hoping we'd be able to see, but maybe we will take another chance in the afternoon and see how it pans out. For now, we have a really long drive back to the gate. Let's see if we find something along the way. What? Is it a Thursday today or a Friday? Thursday, no? So it's a Thursday afternoon, our 8th game drive. And it's not as hot as it has been on most days, maybe because it rained in the morning. And we are headed into the park in just a bit. And as you can see, the park's fairly crowded today. I think it's because just while we were exiting, we saw a tiger at a waterhole. Not too many people got shots of it, but it's likely to be sitting there. It's one of the popular male tigers here. We're going back to that area now. We had a good time at Hinota in the morning. Unfortunately, we can't go there because it's the second plateau. It takes us about an hour to get there, given that the park enforces a strict driving speed limit of 25 kilometers per hour. So afternoon safaris are mostly areas close by. So we're gonna go to the area where we saw the tigress that goes by P151 and her cubs, and then maybe go to the big grassland and see what the other tigress is up to. But yeah, looking forward to a good afternoon. Hopefully the tigress will be out.
As much as I love seeing a tiger when I least expect it, like it happened this morning, I also love seeing a tiger when we do expect to see it. It's fair to say that there is no subset of tiger sightings that I don't love. We saw a huge male, P661, who has by some distance the largest head I've seen on a cat, strutting around the area near the boating point. We saw him in the open for a minute or two before he disappeared into the jungle.
So based on this morning's learning, we actually have a cover for the vehicle, and therefore we are inside our vehicle in the middle of the storm. But before the storm, we saw a large male tiger, which I'm told is 661. Wanted to see a male tiger. I'm really thrilled that I was able to see it now. And right now, as you can see, we're all huddled up inside the car while it's pouring outside. We have another 15 or so minutes that we can stay here before we need to head out. Great day all in all. We saw a tiger in the morning, we saw a tiger in the evening, got great shots of both. So yeah, great day overall despite the rain and the weather that we didn't expect. पंजा दिखा
पंजा नहीं, गाड़ी का टायर देख रहे थे कि इधर पे कोई गया है, नहीं गया।
कोई नहीं गया।
So you might have heard the story of this person who is looking for a watch under a street light at night. 6 or 7 people join in and they start looking for a watch. And one person then asks, exactly where did you lose it? And the person says, well, I lost it all the way back out there. And they say, why the hell are you looking for it here? He says, well, there's a street lamp here. It's dark there. It's much the same with us. We have no clue as to where the tiger is. There's not even been a hint of a call or any movement. But 4 of us cars are parked here along this path because if she does walk here, it'll be a great shot to make.
Kachu dikho is Bundelkhandi for did you see anything? But much like the subject of life, the universe and everything, the question carries more weight than any answer one can receive. The tone of the question reveals desperation or despondency of the seeker. With enough experience, one can infer exactly how long it has been since the seeker has seen a tiger, based only on the question's tone. And through my drives in Panna, I learned that even though the question translates literally to have you seen anything, it seeks the whereabouts only of big cats. On my first game drive here, I saw a large raptor, possibly a fish eagle, and asked for the driver to stop. I was politely explained that game drive etiquette requires us to stop for the lesser mortals only when we have put in enough effort towards a tiger. So when someone asks, Kachu dikho, it excludes everything that isn't a big cat. Even raptors, some of the most majestic subjects to photograph, don't make the cut. In our time here, we saw some amazing raptors. The most common was the crested serpent eagle. We saw the grey-headed fish eagle a few times too, including one getting mauled by a lapwing. The highlight amongst all our raptor sightings was the king vulture. Peafowl were abundant too. Their calls were all over the park. And as the rain began to pick, we saw a number of peacocks display too. Waiting at waterholes was also great for birding. And if you're birding while waiting for a tiger, I don't think it counts as disrespect towards the apex predator. We saw swallows collecting wet mud for their nests at one of the large waterholes at Hinota. Petronias and pipits were common at waterholes too. And of course, there were the bee eaters. Plum-headed parakeets were everywhere. Summer happens to be their breeding season. One morning, I spent half an hour watching these parakeets at a nest, which is a hollow in a tree trunk. And then there were langurs. I can never get enough of photographing langurs. They are some of the most active animals. In summer, they devour the mahua, a local flower. It is rich in sugar, and this is probably where they get their energy from. Once they've had their fill of mahuas and leaves, they head towards water. At waterholes, there is just as much opportunity for, well, being themselves. If the langurs had it their way, I guess they'd always be up and about, running around and chasing each other and jumping from tree to tree. But the Panna heat is oppressive, even early in the morning. Around 8:30 AM or so, large troops start gathering in shade. Their congregations hold till it's late afternoon and much cooler, and then they forage for a bit. Tourists in tiger parks love langurs for another reason. If it wasn't for their alarm calls, we'd probably not see as many tigers. They are one of the most trustworthy sentries, and when they panic, we know that a big cat is around. None of the aforementioned animals and birds count as an affirmative response to Kachu dikho. We could be at a waterhole while watching a large herd of chital deer drink water and still shake our heads when asked if Kachu dikho, which I suppose is par for the course at a tiger park. Waterholes are also great places to photograph some of the more common mammals in the jungle: spotted deer, sambars, jackals, and in summer, waiting around a waterhole guarantees wildlife. One afternoon, we saw a huge rock python at a pond. It was doing its best to digest a large meal that it had a little earlier. It was well over 15 feet, easily the biggest snake I've seen. I prefer to wait at a waterhole than drive from one end of the park to another, because something is likely to show up. So if we had to take a chance and wait, a water body is as good a bet as any, especially in summer. Soon, it came to be our last drive in the park. I wanted to spend as much time by the river, absorbing every last bit of panna before I left. If I did see a tiger, it would be a bonus.
So I'm halfway through a book called The Tiger by John Valiant. He says that we pride ourselves in our ability to tell stories, and he says that the first stories that we came across weren't what we told each other or what we read, but it was stories that we interpreted from science and nature because our survival depended on it. It was things like looking at pug marks and understanding where a predator has gone, or looking at hoof marks and understanding where a herd of deer or antelope might be, or just understanding based on trees and leaves and flat patches of grass on the ground what might have happened there. And when I think about my trip here, I've been dropped in the middle of a story that was going on, and we get to experience a week of it. We get to make sense of a week of it. And looking at a wildlife trip this way sort of makes me enjoy it so much more, because it doesn't become only about the megafauna. It doesn't become only about the things you're seeing, be it the tigers or the leopards or the pit vipers or the dancing frogs, the fungi. You're able to appreciate everything else you're seeing and make sense of the science and try to appreciate the stories that are ongoing. And in this sort of last game drive, even though we haven't seen a tiger, just to be able to sit here and think about what happened to the 4 tigers, the mother and the almost fully grown cub she had, what happened to the other 2 tigers that we're seeing on the other side, based on what we saw yesterday, makes it that much more interesting for me. So yeah, it's been a great trip so far. We're absorbing the very last of the story this place has to offer with an hour to go. And if things go well, we'll see a tiger. If not, we'll gather more stories of everything else that's happened here.
Our private sunset session was interrupted by half a dozen cars that came and parked around us. They'd been tracking a tigress who was crossing the river and could now only be seen from our vantage point. We watched this tigress walk along the river and cross over to the other side, the non-tourism area. My driver and guide were arguing about the tiger's ID. Was it P142 or her eldest cub or some other tiger? For them, these things matter. They need to be back here tomorrow with other guests, and the exact whereabouts of a tiger helps. To me, it didn't matter which tiger it was. Not because I'd not be here tomorrow, but because she was there and going about her life. Maybe she's walking to newer grounds. Maybe to make a new territory of her own, away from her mother and siblings. Maybe she'll have her own litter there someday. Whatever her reasons for walking that evening may be, the fact that she walks this landscape is the win. Because as recently as 15 years ago, Panna did not have tigers. Today, they thrive.